welcome to finally another tea time talk. It's been a long time since I did a tea time talk, and I think I need to practice my speaking again, so this is a good way to do it. Since usually I just have some guidelines scripted in my tea time talk, it's a little bit different than my other videos, but I'm happy to be back, and yeah, let's jump right into it. So today I planned on doing something different. Today I want to give you examples of things we say no to our kids here in our home. And what do I mean with that? Well, as parents, we need to guide our children, and sometimes that's including saying no to them. And that's a good thing, because in our Christian walk as well, God says no to us quite some bit. And I think it's good to teach the children from a young age what is right and what is wrong. Saying no hasn't to do with controlling our children or just punishing them for not being good people, but it is giving them guidelines so they can follow the right path. And usually we as parents also need to follow this example, because children doesn't always do as you say, they do as you do. So always remember to be a good example for your children in how you behave and how you choose in life. And maybe these things that I will bring up today could look a little bit different than others, of course. And we all have different guidelines for our children, but I think the ones that I will bring up today is kind of a good basic foundation for teaching our children to walk in a good and a biblical and godly way. Because the world will teach our children something else than we want to teach them, of course, since the world isn't following God's word or wanting to have his standards. But we do, so we need to really start with the foundation from a young age. And yeah, just so you know that maybe it will look different for you, but I will explain why we say no to the things that we do. The first thing on the list today is that we say no to smartphones or like free access to internet to our children. So this might be different from every family, even if you're a Christian family or not. But we have decided that our children are not allowed to have a smartphone. Our oldest son is turning 16 this December, and he's actually getting his first now, but it will be without internet and no Wi-Fi connection to it in our home. And why he gets it now is because he's about to practicing for driver's license, and yeah, he needs his own bank logging and everything like that, and for that you usually need a smartphone. So that's the only reason, because until now, for like 2-3 years, he have had like a regular old-fashioned button phone, and it has worked very well. He can call us and he can text us, and we can call him when necessary, and that has worked just fine. The children doesn't need smartphones, and they certainly are not capable of actually having one, because like, if you see it like this, you had a smartphone to your child, maybe 10 years old, and they have internet, they have Snapchat, they can connect with friends, they have social medias, maybe not. But when you hand this smartphone to your child, it's like saying, okay, here you go, here is the world. That's what we're doing. If you want them to call and text, it works so fine with just a regular phone. You don't need a smartphone with the access to the world in it. And if you also have social media for your children, they are allowed to have Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever it can be. You're like just opening dangerous doors. Because sure, Snapchat might seem innocent. You just send pictures back and forth to your friends. But there you also have this like suggestion feed where you can get videos of everything, and it's never appropriate, almost never. And there's commercials, and almost anyone can contact you on it if you have that activated. And some children also have like this places activated, so all the people following you can see where you are also, which is very dangerous in many ways. But just so you know that Instagram, Facebook, nothing is innocent. There's always a chance, or a risk, of course, that something inappropriate will show up, and you have access to inappropriate stuff. You can find porn and everything in those platforms. So keep your children away from it, and teach them how to use it in an appropriate way. But then also when they are mature enough to actually do it. And if you also give them free access to internet, well, the whole world is there. Sure, they can have a Bible app and everything, but you still have this temptation that I can go to the website and check this out. So I just encourage you to keep away from the smartphones as long as possible, because we as like parents from my generation, we know how bad the internet actually is. There's a lot of junk in there. So we need to protect our children from that, especially when we are Christians, because there's so much out there that is not good for our children and not for our own selves either. So we have to be very mindful about that. And the next thing is movies and books. We say no to a lot of movies out there and a lot of books. Going into a bookstore, at least here in Sweden, finding a book for teenager, like 90% of all the books are magic or demonic or whatever you would call it. It's so hard to find good literature for kids these days. And there is a lot of movies that we say no to because it's too, it's magic, or it's they're doing yoga in the movies and it's for children, but the like pets are doing yoga to calm themselves, and just indoctrinating the kids to accept those teachings. And in many movies there are a lot of relationships, and in books too, like books for girls, is a lot of love stories and that kind of stuff. And all of that we say no to, because it's not good for our children to be introduced for it in a young age. And when it comes to magic, like if they watch it a lot when they are young, it can give this interest in searching more into it, and like, oh, this is actually the real deal. It's possible to do this in reality. And of course, the Bible talks so much about this. And we need to be careful, because children cannot discern what is good or bad in this matter, or they just see the fascination of it and just think it's cool, maybe. So it's very important to keep our children away from it, and from yoga and that every kind of other religious practices. And of course, movies with, or series or children's program with very bad behavior that we don't accept either, when they are just screaming or having attitude, or that we also say big no to, because it's so important what our children sees and put before their eyes, and also what they hear. So if we want to give them a good foundation, it's very important that we don't put these things in front of them so that they are accessing it anyway. If we are trying to teach them good morals, but the children's movies they are watching are teaching them to be rebellious to their parents, or just ignorant and just having a bad attitude, that will make a conflict for our children. And it's so important that we choose what they see in a good way, so that it follows our teaching for the children as well. So the next one is mostly for our girls, but we say no to all kinds of makeup. And that might also seem like a small deal for people, but for us it's a very big deal, because we don't want to introduce makeup to our girls, because we want them to realize their value in God's eyes. For example, God made them the way that they look, and we really encourage, like our youngest is just 3 years old, so it's harder with her, but our older is 10 years old, and all the friends are having makeup and such. So we try to encourage her instead that, okay, God made you this way, and you should be very happy about the way He created you, not trying to hide it and make you someone you're not. And if we look in the world today, we can see that it's so vain. It's so obsessed with being beautiful, and you have to dye your hair and everything like that. And we don't want our girls to fall into that attention ditch, that they have to make themselves beautiful for other people. Instead, we try to really encourage our daughters to be grateful for how they are created. And I think it's very important for the future that they can see their own value and their beauty, instead of hiding it from others and trying to be someone they're not. The fourth thing we say no to our children is to having a girlfriend or boyfriend. And this is because we want them to think more in the long term, that they are searching for a wife or a husband. Because the world today is more like, okay, you can try several out and then you can decide what's your match. But that's not a way we should do as Christian parents. We should encourage our children to go a more pure way, and not having girlfriends or boyfriends, but searching this bigger picture, like, okay, I want a family when I am an adult, so I need to see what kind of wife or husband I want to have. And there our roles as parents are very important, because we set the example of what our children will have in the future and what they will search for. But for us, we have been very early with talking in this way, like, okay, when you're an adult and you have a wife, what do you want to do then? Or when you are old enough to have a husband, how will he be? And we talk a lot in those terms to make that more normal than having a boyfriend, maybe. Because we want our children to stay safe and pure before the marriage. And it's so important that we guide them in that way, because we have the authority to do that. Sure, if they have feelings for someone, we can't stop that, but we can talk to them and have them realizing what those feelings are, that is not love, it's feelings. And you should aim for, like, when you're old enough to have a family, then you can search. And I know many would argue with me about this issue, maybe, but we think it's very important to have that conversation, that when you are, that we have many times said to our sons, that when you are old enough to take care of children, then start searching for a wife. And sure, there can be a wife nearby that they might have looked at or just felt like maybe that's something, but that's something else than having a girlfriend or dating or anything like that. So for us, it's very important to give them the opportunity to grow and be actually mature enough to get into a marriage eventually. And the last thing, at least on my list here today, is parties. We don't allow our children to go on like bigger parties. Of course, birthday parties when they are very young and have just like friends and playing games and giving each other presents, that's totally fine. But not in this bigger picture like discos and parties with friends during the weekends and that kind of stuff, where it might include alcohol, or in smaller discos it's like you have maybe this punch with berries and stuff, like alcoholic drink but non-alcoholic, and just it's just this mentality about the party culture that we don't agree with, and we don't think it's necessary for the children to attend these parties in so many aspects of it, both because it's often including like dancing and like maybe checking people out, or just this atmosphere of the grown-up life that we do not support, that maybe non-Christians or even Christians are doing because they have like this eager to like just like get out, take a glass together and just have a nice time. But this is so dangerous, I think, for our children, and we should be very mindful about what we are letting them go to. Like certain sleepovers, that's also a no sometimes for us because of the atmosphere that they will be in. And I know that for some, this might seem a little bit like it's unnecessary to say no to like smartphones or movies and just that small fussy things. But everything matters when you raise your children. All the areas of their life has to be taught, and we have to keep them away from worldliness. As Christian parents, we need to be very mindful about what we put before their eyes and what they hear, like in music as well. We don't allow our children to listen to worldly music either. But I think that the important thing, even if it's just small stuff or if it's in a bigger picture, it's a good idea to always have an open communication with your children. Because if they come and say to you, can I go to this party, for example, and you're like, no, that's not okay, and end of discussion, then they will not even know why they can't go. So when we say no, usually it comes with an explanation, either because of our faith, that it's not appropriate to do like that when we are Christians, or it's because it goes against like me and my husband's beliefs, or just our ways for our family. But to always have that open discussion so they know why they can't attend certain things or have certain things that everyone else does. You have heard that before, I guess. Because if we just say no and doesn't even give them an explanation to why, that could end up in a rebellious behavior in the children, that they are like, okay, I can never do anything. But if we give them the answers and the wisdom of their choices, or our choices in this case, when they are too young to make them their own, we give them wisdom, and that will lead to understanding, and they will eventually understand why it's important. Well, that was my short message today. I hope it can be encouraging for anyone who have these thoughts that how will I deal with stuff, or maybe you are saying no to the same things that I do, and just feeling encouraged that you're not the only one. Or if you have other things that you think is very important that you say no to, let me know in the comments, and we can all help each other to build each other up in our parenting and guiding our children. But I hope truly that this can be a blessing for you, and I hope I will soon be back here again. Maybe with a cup of tea, maybe not, we'll see. But have a blessed day and see you soon. Bye.